After the elimination of King T'Challa, a new enemy arises with the aim of destroying Wakanda. To protect her people, Shuri must overcome her grief and find a solution to restore peace. Today we're going to recap the story of the movie, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, from 2022. Due to a serious illness that took over his body, King T'Challa ended up dying a few years after taking over the reins from his father. During the farewell ceremony for their beloved king, all the people of Wakanda gathered to say goodbye to their great leader, the Black Panther. Although she is not to blame for what happened, Shuri feels responsible for her brother's perishment because she was unable to find a cure for him. A year after T'Challa's perishment, Queen Ramonda appears at the United Nations headquarters in Geneva to answer for her people. Wakanda is being accused by representatives of other countries of not complying with the agreement to share its technology and resources, including vibranium. In the face of these accusations, Ramonda claims that it has always been part of her people's policy never to trade vibranium with other nations, as this material would certainly be used in a harmful way. The night before, one of the Wakandan outreach centers was raided by a group of soldiers, who intended to steal the vibranium weapons. However, Okoye and the Dora Milaje were there to protect them. Even armed with firearms, the soldiers had no chance against the warriors of Wakanda. During the meeting with the leaders of different countries, Ramonda presents everyone with the evidence that proves the involvement of the French embassy in that attack. So she says that her people will continue to protect their resources and wishes good luck to anyone who tries to steal them. After this speech, the nations gave up invading the Wakandan laboratories and started looking for alternative ways to obtain vibranium. Upon identifying a possible source of vibranium in the ocean by means of an accurate detection machine, the Navy, together with the CIA, sends 2 divers to verify that the information is true. However, when Jackson and Salazar approach the material, they both end up being attacked by a mysterious sea creature and are unable to survive. Then the soldiers outside the ship hear a sound of unknown origin and are mesmerized. Influenced by the noise, the sailors jump into the sea and drown. Noticing the sonic attack, Smitty and Dr. Graham use earplugs to protect themselves and go out to check where the sound is coming from. While outside the ship, the pair are surprised by blue humanoid creatures and Smitty is eliminated. Luckily, the doctor manages to escape and runs around the ship so that her enemies can't catch up with her. She quickly gets into the rescue helicopter and manages to escape with the pilot, but the pair don't get very far because a flying superhuman catches the aircraft in midair and throws it into the ocean. 12 months have passed and Shuri still hasn't been able to get over her brother's perishment. Worried about her daughter, Ramonda decides to take her camping and tells her that she needs to tell her something. At that moment, they are both interrupted by the cry of an elephant and realize that someone is nearby. Suddenly, an unknown man emerges from the bottom of the lake and introduces himself as Neymar. The intruder reveals that he is there to ask for help, because now that nations all over the world are searching for vibranium, his people are also in danger. However, Ramonda shows no interest in complying with the stranger's request, so Neymar decides to leave. But before he leaves, he reveals that an American scientist has built a machine capable of detecting vibranium and asks the woman to help him find it. After capturing the culprit, all she has to do is blow a conch shell and soon Neymar and his army will appear. After this unexpected visit, the queen decides to convene the council to discuss what can be done and everyone, except M'Baku, agrees that Ramonda should deliver the American scientist to him. The warrior says that the best solution is to put an end to the fishman so that there is no risk of him appearing in the future to make new demands. Meanwhile, Shuri is analyzing the machine that Neymar took to Wakanda and claims that the person who built that vibranium detector is brilliant. In an attempt to obtain information about this case, Okoye and Shuri travel to the United States and pay a visit to Everett Ross, who reveals the identity of the girl who built the machine. The scientist is actually a 19-year-old girl called Riri Williams who is still at university. After a few minutes watching the girl, Shuri decides to go and talk to her and Riri recognizes her immediately. When asked about the machine she created, the young woman says that it was a project developed for her metallurgy class at school, as her teacher had challenged her to create a device capable of detecting vibranium. During the conversation, Riri realizes that she is in danger and decides to accompany Shuri and Okoye to Wakanda. Before leaving, the young woman says she needs to go to her makeshift laboratory to get her laptop. Just then, FBI agents appear and surround the place. Furious, Riri blames Shuri and Okoye for what happened while burning all her projects so that the government can't steal them and have no evidence against her. Luckily, the young woman has an emergency exit and puts on the robot suit she built herself while her new Wakandan friends flee by car. When the FBI agents break into the garage, Riri attacks them and clears the way for Shuri and Okoye to pass. In an attempt to throw off the officers, They decide to split up and Riri rides a motorcycle through the city, performing daring maneuvers to knock over the police cars. Minutes later, she and Okoye meet and the princess discovers that her location is being tracked by a drone. Upon learning of this, Riri goes after the device that was attached to an airplane and manages to destroy it with a single shot. Due to the altitude, the young woman runs out of oxygen and falls into the ocean. However, before she can dive into the water, her suit's thrusters are activated and she manages to save herself. Seeing the vehicles surrounding the bridge, Riri fires another shot and opens the way for her friends. At that moment, however, she is hit and falls to the ground. Then the same happens to Shuri and Okoye, whose vehicles are attacked with a water bomb. After getting out of the overturned car, Okoye goes to check on Shuri, who is unconscious. Luckily, the young woman managed to cushion her fall and her vital signs are stable. Suddenly, some Talokan soldiers appear on the bridge and Okoye lunges at them with her spear. Despite dealing with trained warriors, the woman manages to defeat them and prevents the fishmen from getting close to Riri. However, when facing Atuma, the Dora Milaje realizes that she's in trouble, as she can't beat him on her own. Suddenly, one of the soldiers throws a water bomb at the woman and she ends up being thrown into the ocean. At that moment, Atuma walks towards Riri, but Shuri manages to stop him from hurting the girl. After introducing herself, she demands that the warrior take her to meet Neymar and they both dive into the ocean with the fishmen, leaving Okoye desperate. Not knowing what to do to find the princess, the woman decides to return to Wakanda and reveals that Shuri has been taken by Neymar's army. Upon hearing Okoye's statement in front of the entire council, Ramonda decides to remove her from her position as general of the Wakanda armies and from her status as Dora Milaje. The queen's advisors don't agree with this decision, as in recent years Okoye has made many sacrifices for the sake of the kingdom. However, Ramonda is unable to forgive her for putting her daughter's life in danger, as Shuri is the only remaining member of her family. After the meeting, Ramonda goes to the lab to talk to Griot, the artificial intelligence that accompanied her daughter when she was captured, and asks for his help in tracking her down. At this point, the queen contacts Agent Ross, who says he will do everything in his power to help her rescue the princess. Unable to wait passively for a solution, Ramonda decides to travel to Haiti in search of Nakia, because the woman is an experienced spy. The queen then asks the warrior to infiltrate the nation of fishmen to rescue the princess, without even imagining that, at this very moment, Shuri and Riri are being held in an underwater cave. The very next day, Nakia begins her investigation and travels to a village to interview the locals in order to gather information about Neymar and his kingdom. When she finally meets the leader of the people, Shuri discovers that he has been alive since the 16th century and that his mother was human. Neymar then decides to explain how he acquired his special abilities. According to him, the woman and her village were driven off their farms by Spanish conquistadors. In the midst of famine, war and disease, his people turned to Chak, the god of rain and abundance, for help. After asking for the entity's help, the tribe's shaman had a vision of how to save his people and dived into the ocean in search of a blue plant sprouting from a rock. During a ritual, all the villagers ingested the plant, but Neymar's mother didn't want to because she was pregnant. However, the shaman managed to convince her that her baby was sick and only that flower could cure it. He also promised that Neymar would be the new king of the tribe, as he would be the first child to be born under the plant's powers. Contrary to what the shaman said, after ingesting that flower, the people became ill and their existence ended that day. However, a few hours later, they all woke up again, but their bodies were no longer the same as before. The plant took away their ability to breathe air, but allowed them to extract oxygen from the sea. Since then, the group has decided to settle in the ocean, away from wars and disease. A few months later, Neymar was born and became Talokan's firstborn son. The plant gave him pointed ears and wings on his ankles, which characterized him as a mutant. As well as aging more slowly than any human being, Neymar became able to fly and breathe the Earth's air, just like his ancestors. Years later, when his mother died of old age, Neymar decided to fulfill her last wish and went up to the surface to bury her. However, when he saw the natives being imprisoned, he didn't think twice about taking action and gathered his army to expel the Spaniards from those lands. After hearing this story, Shuri understands why Neymar wants to eliminate Riri, but says that he will take her to Wakanda, where the young woman can pose no risk to his people. However, Neymar doesn't accept the deal, so Shuri offers to stay there in her place. Before continuing the negotiations, the fishman decides to take her to see his kingdom and the princess has to wear a special costume to survive the pressure of the ocean. During the dive, Shuri is introduced to the beautiful creatures that live at the bottom of the sea and is delighted to discover the city of Talokan, which was built around an artificial sun made of vibranium. While investigating the whereabouts of the princess, Nakia enlists the help of Griot to find an underground cave located 140 meters below the surface, where Shuri is supposedly being held. After putting on her diving suit, the spy dives into the ocean and enters the submarine that will take her to the cave. As the first person from the surface to visit Talokan, Shuri receives a gift of a bracelet made from the plant that saved the people and congratulates Neymar on everything he and his tribe have built. However, as Princess of Wakanda, she says that she cannot allow him to execute Riri and that she will not leave without her. At this point, Neymar reveals that he is planning to declare war against the people on the surface and needs to know if Wakanda will be his ally in this battle. The machine built by Riri was just the trigger that led him to make this decision, since his ancestors had been exploited and had their land plundered for hundreds of years. Knowing that Wakanda is also a target for the rest of the world, which is just waiting for an opportunity to plunder the country, Neymar plans to join forces with the Wakandans to subjugate the other nations. However, Shuri says that her people will never help him achieve this goal, and Neymar says that if Wakanda refuses this agreement, it will automatically be declaring war against the people of Talokan. During the conversation, Neymar is informed that his presence has been requested on the surface and goes to meet Ramonda, whose mission is to distract him so that Nakia can invade the cave. After eliminating the fish women who were assigned to watch over Shuri, Nakia flees with Riri and the princess. She then uses the submarine to take them to the surface. Just then, a Wakandan ship appears and Ramonda uses her technology to take the trio on board. Relieved, the queen hugs her daughter and orders Griot to take them to Wakanda. When he finds the two warriors lifeless, Neymar soon realizes that he has been tricked by Ramonda and decides to take revenge. Now that Shuri has met Talokan, there is no guarantee that the city's location will be safe, so Neymar decides to act as soon as possible to protect his people. With the support of Atuma and his army, Neymar intends to invade Wakanda and set an example for the rest of the world. Knowing that Neymar will seek revenge, as soon as she arrives in her country, Shuri orders the barriers protecting Wakanda to be fortified. Upon returning to Wakanda after so many years, Nakia decides to pay Okoye a visit. As they talk, they notice a flood and soon discover that Wakanda is under attack. Soon, half the country is underwater and the warriors fight to protect the citizens while trying to keep the fishmen at bay. During the battle, M'Baku spots Neymar planning the next steps with his army and decides to attack him. However, his blow does no damage to the enemy who, with a single punch, throws him away. Just then, Wakandan ships approach to attack Neymar, but the fishman, who possesses superhuman strength, manages to take them down with ease. Then Shuri's ship approaches and the warrior decides to dive again. He then swims at high speed so that the princess has to lower her altitude to fire. When this happens, Neymar jumps onto the aircraft and manages to bring it down. While Shuri tries to escape before her cabin is flooded, the fishman goes after Riri, but fails to break the glass with his spear. So he throws water bombs to destroy the glass in the laboratory and Ramonda is hit. With the impact of the explosion, the queen faints and, when she wakes up, realizes that Riri is drowning. She immediately dives in to save her and brings the girl back to the surface. Minutes later, when Okoye and Nakia arrive at the lab, they find the bodies of Riri and Ramonda floating, but both are unconscious. Realizing that he has gone too far in attacking the queen, Neymar decides to leave, but says that in a week he will return with his entire army. If the Wakandans refuse to fight alongside them to subjugate the rest of the world, the man promises that he will destroy the entire country. Then, when Shuri appears, Neymar leaves Wakanda with his troops and the princess despairs at the sight of her mother's lifeless body. After a few seconds of heart massage, Riri recovers, but Ramonda remains unconscious, until Okoye realizes that she will never wake up. Shortly after attending her beloved brother's wake, Shuri suffers yet another loss and has to attend her mother's funeral. Now that the queen is gone, the young woman must make a difficult decision that will change the fate of all her people. While trying to think of a solution to prevent more Wakandans from being eliminated, Shuri is studying a solution to bring the Black Panther back, since all the copies of the Heartweed have been destroyed by her cousin. With Griot's help, she decides to try to create a synthetic heartweed from the fibers of the bracelet she got from Neymar. Since that flower was also grown in vibranium-rich soil, perhaps there are some basic similarities between the two plants that can be exploited. While the princess searches for a solution to protect her people, the rest of the population unites to rebuild the country. While studying Neymar's physiology, Shuri discovers that he doesn't have gills like all the others of his species. This means that the fishman breathes by means of a diffusion process that takes place through his skin. So Riri has the idea of building a capsule to remove all the water from the surface of his body, so that the man won't have access to oxygen. With Shuri in charge, Okoye regains her status as a Dora Milaje and gets a new combat outfit. After a few days working hard to restructure the Heartweed's DNA, Shuri manages to create an almost 100% compatible copy and decides to put all her money on it. With Nakia's help, she prepares the tea that will take her to the ancestral plane and looks forward to meeting her mother again. Instead, Eric Killmonger is waiting for her. When she sees him, Shuri is furious because it was he who destroyed the entire Heart Grass plantation in the past. Thanks to Eric, Wakanda was left without a protector and Queen Ramonda died during Namor's attack. Upon hearing these accusations, Eric says that it was Shuri who unconsciously chose him to be there and asks if she will be a noble ruler like her brother or will she seek revenge like her cousin. After hearing this question, the young woman wakes up frightened and realizes that she has failed in her ritual, as her ancestors have not appeared to speak to her. Furious, the princess punches the mannequin in her laboratory and realizes that she has become dozens of times stronger than before. At that moment, she realizes that the ritual has worked and prepares her costume for the battle to come. After donning the Black Panther uniform, Shuri goes to see her mother's former advisors and asks the elders for permission to have a private conversation with M'Baku. The young woman then reveals that she wants to eliminate Namor, but M'Baku thinks it's a bad idea. During the invasion, he realized that his enemies consider that Fishman to be their god and eliminating him could lead to an eternal war between Talokan and Wakanda. However, Shuri isn't worried about this, as her only desire is to avenge her mother's elimination. So the next morning, she summons the entire Wakandan army to join her on this mission and goes to meet Namor. The young woman uses the vibranium detecting machine built by Riri to locate the enemy nation in the vast ocean and ends up attracting the attention of the fishmen, who go to meet her. While Namor tries to shoot down the planes, his army decides to invade the ship, but the Dora Milaje were prepared for this and, with Shuri's help, managed to stop them from boarding. Protected inside her suit, Riri tries to approach Namor, but he manages to move at high speed even out of the water. After setting up an ambush to surround him, the young woman hits the enemy with a shot and Shuri approaches to finish the job, as she is keen to personally eliminate the man who took her mother's life. When he is captured by the ship, Namor realizes that it is hotter than usual there and all the water on the surface of his body begins to evaporate. After capturing Namor, the Wakandan army began the second stage of their plan and changed the ship's course to return to their country. However, the fishmen will not allow them to escape so easily and use thousands of explosives to attack the ship. During the impact of the explosion, countless warriors fall into the sea and are attacked by the enemy army. Seeing their brothers and sisters being eliminated, Okoye and Annika take action and use the flying suits created by the princess to protect their people. Meanwhile, Shuri is trapped inside the ship with her greatest enemy and orders Griot to take them to the desert. Thanks to Namor's attacks, the ship will explode at any moment, and when it does, the fishman needs to be far away from the ocean. On reaching dry land, Shuri is attacked, but manages to tear one of the wings off Namor's ankle, which prevents him from flying. By now, the Talokan army has managed to invade the ship and the Wakandan warriors are doing everything in their power to defeat them, but the truth is that they are outnumbered. Furious, Shuri absorbs all her anger and decides to use it as fuel to defeat Namor. The princess is about to win that duel when her enemy pierces her body with a spear and then walks towards the ocean. After removing the spear from her abdomen, the young woman goes after her opponent, who is weakened by the lack of water. At that moment, she turns on her ship's thrusters and burns Namor's body. As she remembers all the pain that man has caused her people, Shuri remembers how much he too has suffered in the past and asks Namor to surrender. The young woman says that his secret will be safe with the people of Wakanda and that she will never tell humanity about Talokan's existence. Knowing that this is the only way to survive, Namor decides to surrender and accompanies Shuri back to the ship. When he gets there, he orders his people to return home and says that the war between the two nations is over. Relieved, the survivors return to Wakanda and rebuild their society. Weeks later, a new garden of heartgrass begins to bloom and the princess says goodbye to Riri, who will now have the chance to return home. With the throne free, a new duel must take place for the future king to be chosen, but Shuri refuses to run for the position, so she sends M'Baku in his place. Meanwhile, she is on her way to Haiti, where she meets Nakia. After losing everyone she loved, all the princess wants is the chance for a fresh start. So what did you think of this movie? Leave it in the comments below. And if you liked the video, like and subscribe for more movie recaps. See you next time.